starting. Hello, everyone. As you're logging in, please go ahead and type hello in the chat so we know you're here. And we'll get started in the next 1 to 2 minutes. Hi, everyone. I'll give it another minute or so to see who's joining. Say hello to the chat. If there are any MESA staff who have logged in as an audience member, please hello and identify yourselves if you're in. Okay, let's get started. So my name is Bianca Chakamp. I'm the Oregon MESA program coordinator, and I'm going to pass it off to Taye, who's our recruitment coordinator, to get us started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taye, and I'm the recruitment coordinator, and I'll be helping assist host this event tonight. So first, we're going to go over our guidelines for this session. So our guidelines are making sure everyone's respectful, listening to understand, listening actively and attentively. Don't be afraid to ask questions, allow yourselves to be uncomfortable, and assume positive intentions. So this session will be recorded and also available on our YouTube channel in the coming weeks. And if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A. It's the button at the bottom of your screen. It should say Q&A with the 2 chat bubbles. So we'll be doing a Q&A after our speakers introduce themselves. So if you type in the Q&A, sorry, if you type in the Q&A, we can upvote questions, and then it'll go in the order that we choose, and they'll be answered during that portion at the end. So for now, I'm going to go over our MESA mission statement. And our mission is to provide students underrepresented in the fields of mathematics, engineering, science, and technology with the skills, knowledge, and opportunities to develop their talents, explore technology-based careers, enter college, and compete successfully in the workforce. So Portland State is located in the heart of downtown Portland in Multnomah County, and we honor the indigenous peoples whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on. The Multnomah, Catalamit, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands of the Chinook, the Tualatin, Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. It is important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and to recognize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. Remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. And now we're giving it over to Monica, who's going to introduce Oregon WIN.
Thank you so much, Taye. So I'm so happy to be here to co-host this with MESA, Oregon MESA, and I'm happy to introduce Oregon WIN. It's a great community of women, allies, sponsors, and advocates where we provide a foundation for personal and professional development within Intel. And we do this through events in networking, outreach such as this one, mentoring, technical areas, and many more. We strive to build an environment where women and allies can thrive and achieve their full potential while driving significant business impact at Intel. And for me personally, Orwin is where I have made friends, mentors, found a mission that aligns with my own. As a woman engineer in an all-male team, Orwin is where I can go to find a community of peers who share my experiences on a more personal level. So very excited to be part of Orwin and work with Oregon MESA these past few months to co-host this event. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Monica. And I just wanted to say a little bit about our partnership with Intel. In the spring of '93, MESA received a special grant from the Intel Foundation, which enabled us to actually expand into Washington County and implementing a high school programs within 3 high schools in the Hillsborough and Forest Grove area. And so that expansion doubled our presence in Washington County at the time to about 140 students. And then since then, Intel has been a key partner for us. Their employees come to volunteer to our different events. They've dedicated hundreds of volunteer hours over since the 90s to helping us, and Intel has sponsored and hosted many of our core events, including Demo Day, which is our regional student showcase that is open to the public, and MESA Day, which is our culminating end of the year competition. Thank you to our Intel partners for believing in our mission and in our students. And to introduce our topic, we are focusing on breaking the bias. So this year's Women's History Month comes to a close. We wanted to celebrate by hosting this talk with OR WIN, and in the planning discussions, the theme of breaking the bias, which was the theme for International Women's Day, really struck a chord with us. The excerpt below is from the International Women's Day 2022 campaign, which is imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all break the bias.
And now we're going to introduce our lovely speakers. We have Frankie Morris, Garima Gautam, and Wendy Nimmons.
Okay, and Garima, we'll pass it off to you.
Thank you. Thank you, MESA, for putting together such a meaningful event. Hello, everyone. I'm Garima Gautam. I'm a supply chain research and development engineer at Intel. I also have the privilege to be on Oregon WIN board. It's Women at Intel Network. I'm a board chair and I lead multiple diversity and inclusion program for manufacturing, supply chain, and operations group at Intel. I recently had the privilege and I accepted it. I'm leading SEMI's manufacturing ownership diversity group to develop diverse ecosystem for semiconductor industry. It's super exciting. We are really living in exciting times. And I also get to serve on Manufacturing Institute's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee. And outside of that, I really love teaching. And I really value, what this learning process brings. It is not just the students who learn, but also the instructors. We get to learn from the new perspectives that students bring, and also those innovative ideas, right? I mean, I have learned so much through my teaching experience. And so I'm an adjunct at faculty member at Portland State University School of Business. And I really enjoy this opportunity. It's a great opportunity for me to give back to my school, as well as stay a lifelong learner, by teaching and by learning through my students. I have an undergrad degree in computer science and my MS degree is in supply chain. So if you can please move to the next slide. just few things about me. I wanted to share with you all, it is very important for us to focus on our holistic self. I am not just a supply chain R&D engineer at Intel. Yes, I really enjoy my work, but I do other things, and there are other things that I'm super passionate about. And there are other priorities and other valuable and important things in my life, relationship and other things. I strongly believe in inclusion of diversity. I do it because this is something I'm passionate about and I believe in. So I do this through my volunteer work, as I shared, my Intel and industry D&I engagements. I'm also very passionate about mentoring and building the talent pipeline. This is an awesome way for all of us to pay it forward, right? And make sure that some of the experiences that we have lived, we are able to change those for our mentees and for others, and for them to pay it forward. I did receive a national award, Step Ahead, in 2019, and this award was a recognition for women in STEM career, and it came with a lot of responsibility because it encourages us, all the award winners, to mentor and support the next generation of female talent to pursue their career in STEM and manufacturing areas. So anytime, we have an award or something, we always have to remember that there comes certain set of responsibilities with that, and we have to make sure, that we are fulfilling our duties. As life evolved, my career evolved with time, I realized that creating a right balance towards accomplishing our goals is very important. It's hard to keep sprinting because it's a long journey. So we really have to take a different approach and think of it more as if, it's a marathon, not just sprinting. For example, when my children were young, I had very different priorities. I decided to focus on my family front. And later I decided to go back to school and rebrand myself, right? So that's why you see, like, I did a lot of stuff in computer science, and then I moved into supply chain. It was really important for me to take control and create a healthy balance for myself as I was juggling through a lot of things. I will share my learning with you all, but please, this is something that I feel is very important for me to remind everyone through my experience. Please set yourself free from the unrealistic pressure of doing it all, because that's not real. It totally is not real. I used to crave that too. How is someone doing everything, taking care of their career, their family, and still so well put together while I'm still running in my joggers? It's not real. Try and prioritize what is important for you, because you are your own unique person. And please do not hesitate in prioritizing yourself, because you're the most important person. All the amazing ideas and innovative stuff stems out of you. So make sure you're prioritizing yourself and your requirements. And sometimes these priorities may evolve or change with time. So now I don't give that much time to my little ones because they're teenagers. They're not little anymore. So those things evolve as well. So trying to identify that and address that. And also surround yourself with positive people, folks who build you, not break you. So as you can see, right, I love volunteering, I love teaching, I love traveling, right? And I'm able to do that and strike that balance because I'm very fortunate and blessed to be surrounded with positive people, who are able to see my passion and support me while still being in my technical domain. So that thing is very important. And please stand up. Most important, stand up against the bias, right? You are responsible for yourself, and no one can make you feel a certain way if you don't let them. So get to know your power and control it. Because I remember when I was young software professional, I was labeled as kind of a little nerdy, not very well dressed, lacking presentation skills. Okay. And then later, when I got into supply chain, I got labeled totally opposite way. And it was more like, oh, she sounds more like sales and marketing than technical. Oh, look at her shoes, right? Somehow my heels were sending a message that I'm not carrying a technical head on my shoulder. So, you actually have to filter these out. People may have multiple different kind of biases. Don't chase those biases, rather chase your own dreams and goals. So those are, I know, more than 2 cents, but these are some of my learnings, and this is who I am. So I really felt compelled to share my authentic self with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Garima. Wendy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy. that was a great introduction to follow up. Yeah, so I'm originally from Minnesota, and I guess I just kind of wanted to introduce a little bit about how I got into the STEM field and how I got to where I am in my career right now. Yeah, I ended up to graduate school in Salt Lake City, studying chemistry, and then I moved out to Hillsborough in 2018 and started working at Intel. Yeah, if we can go to the next slide, I've got kind of a summary slide.
And Wendy, your audio is cutting out a bit, so if you actually turn off your camera, we may be able to hear you a little bit better, and everyone can focus on the slide. Thank you.
Yeah, let me. Okay, can you hear me a little bit more clear now?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I live out in the country, so I get poor internet. But yeah, so yeah, over on the left, I got my BS in chemistry in at University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, and I guess my original interest in science and specifically chemistry came from a demo day that was done for me when I was in high school. And I just saw that I think they were doing an experiment with luminol, and it was, oh my God, I need to learn how to do this. Like, I want to be, and it just got me really excited. And so from there, I enrolled. My school had an AP chemistry class, and I did that. And then I, got to start being part of these demos, and we carried that in. So the bottom left picture is me and some other chemistry students doing demos at an elementary school when we were in undergrad. But yeah, so just getting excited about that, and then being able to carry that through into undergrad, and then I also ended up being able to carry that through into my graduate school too. So yeah, so we ended up starting a program called Young and Wise, Women in Science and Engineering, and we would do hot science topics and demos with high schoolers. So that's kind of my why, just why I'm interested in, and then how I like to share it with other people. But yeah, so I got into chemistry, and I kind of decided to go that science route because I really enjoyed it. And then as I was in undergrad, I wasn't really sure where I wanted to take my life career-wise. I guess I had known that, with a STEM degree, you could go to, you go into academia, you could be a professor, or you could go into pre-med. And I didn't really know that there was this whole other world of careers that you could choose from. So I initially started as a pre-med student, and I was very excited about that. But as I was looking for other opportunities within the STEM fields at my school, I found out about summer research. And so I ended up the summer after my sophomore year, I spent doing some research in a lab, and we were doing looking at antibiotic resistance in wastewater and then in the environment, and it was just a really cool project, and I absolutely loved it. And so after working on that project, and I spent the summer there, and then I came back the next summer, and then it was my junior year, and we were finishing that up, and my advisor was telling me I had an awesome female advisor, and she's just so wonderful. But she was saying, I can really see you're interested in this, you enjoy research, and she kind of pointed me towards grad school, and yeah, so I ended up choosing that route, and yeah, so then I ended up going to the University of Utah. So another beautiful location, you can see on the picture. I absolutely loved it there. Yeah, and I started working in materials chemistry. So yeah, I ended up really enjoying making functional devices. My first project was, I kind of looked into getting a project that I really loved initially. I was making a photonic crystal humidity sensor, and it was just so exciting once, you know, I could actually get it to work functionally, and that really drove me through the rest of the PhD. It was like, I'm making this thing that's working, it's doing something, it's yeah, and I realized I love that. And so once I figured out that I like making devices and working with semiconductors like that, I kind of set my eyes on a career doing that. And so that's where Intel comes in. I went to a recruitment brunch with the Intel recruiter, and I learned about it, and I just said, yeah, that's what I want to do, and set my sights on that, and kind of tailored the rest of my PhD towards that job that I wanted to have. Yeah, and I had a lot of good mentors along the way. I was lucky that my PhD advisor was also just a fiercely strong woman, and Frankie also knows her from Utah, but she gave me a lot to look up to, and both of my advisors did. So yeah, it was great. So yeah, that's me and my career trajectory.
Thank you, Wendy. And Frankie.
Hi all. Thanks for everyone for coming. So my name is Frankie Morris. And you can just hop over to the next slide. It's a little bit more fun to look at. Thanks. So I just recently started my career here at Intel as a lithography engineer back in November. And I'm new to the route of engineering, so that's been exciting for me as I'm learning the processes. But lithography is really based a lot in chemistry, the fundamentals of chemistry. Lithography is the has chemical fundamentals. So my background in chemistry has really applied and helped me so far. So previously I started sort of my interest in STEM and science because I was a little kid who really liked math. When I was little, I grew up like first starting school, elementary school, living with my family in Saudi Arabia. And then when I was in about third grade, we moved to the United States, and the way of teaching was like pretty different for me moving back to the United States. My family is from the US, but the style of teaching was pretty new for me, but math was pretty consistent. And I always kind of thrived in math. But as I sort of kind of got a little bit older, started going to high school and thinking, what do I want to do when I grow up? I was thinking, what do you do with math? My dad is a business person. My mom, by that time, was an elementary school teacher, and where I admire both of them, I was not really seeing myself as necessarily a teacher or a business person. So I was like, I wonder what I do with math. And my brother ended up one year for Christmas, got me a few books about science, different types of science, astronomy, biology, and chemistry were some of those. And reading those books in high school, it kind of opened up the world to me of how I could use mathematics in an applied way, and it kind of opened up the entire universe for me of math is the language of our universe. So I was excited then to start a career in science and STEM. So I jumped right into chemistry bachelor's, and I went to the University of Minnesota there, where I started to TA and do a little bit more there, I did some undergraduate research. And then I started afterwards, I went and did my master's in analytical chemistry at the University of Utah, where I first met Wendy. And then after that, I lived in Salt Lake City for 4 years. And I worked at a contract research organization doing supporting drug development work, doing bioanalytical chemistry, where I worked as a scientist, a technical lead, a few different roles there. And I really liked that work there as well. And it was really time for us to leave Salt Lake City. My family made a decision to leave the Salt Lake City area and really start to explore a new part of the country. We felt like we had seen a lot of Utah and we were ready to move on. So we moved out to Oregon, and through knowing Wendy and a few other people, they really recommended Intel as a great place to work and to thrive as an engineer. But outside of that, kind of to what Garima was saying earlier, there is, I love science. It is what I do. I'm an engineer now. It's who I am, but also I think it's very important to balance that side of yourself with outside activities as well, and really center your life, helps to center yourself doing activities that you love outside of science. So as well as I'm an engineer, I'm a chemist, I'm also a hiker, I am a dancer, I love art. I'm all of these things, you know, so yeah, thanks for, that's me in a nutshell. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Frankie.
Thanks.
Okay. So next we're going to do our Q&A, and Taye will be facilitating. I just want to remind everyone, please type your questions into the Q&A for our speakers. All audience members have the ability to upvote any questions that they see. In the meantime, Taye will be starting out with a few questions that we made for our panelists today. Pass it off to you.
Yeah, thank you. Our first question here is, was there a mentor you had in your early career who helped and inspired you? And this is open to anyone on the panel, whoever wants to answer. So the question, sure. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. I'll be very authentic and honest with my answers. I sometimes struggle, you know, to answer this, but you know, as we evolve in life, we get more confident. So the challenge was for me, you know, initially was like, is it okay for me to use my personal examples in terms of, you know, who my role model was? And then I realized it's totally okay because that's the real one. So I actually changed, as I shared, you know, I changed my career path after I had my children. I used to be in you know, computer science area for multiple years. And as I was re-entering the workforce with the new skill sets, I went back and earned another degree and, you know, rebranded myself. And of course, utilized my previous technical experience that was very rewarding. I was actually having a hard time to invest in myself, right, and switch my career. I had no family in the United States, and my husband was finishing up his PhD. It was very difficult, right? So it was my mother, you know, staying 11,000 miles apart. She was the one who truly inspired me and mentored me. She really inspired me to stay on track. I had a plan for myself, and her life examples and accomplishments were instrumental in keeping me going and stay grounded. She was a professor in India. She earned her PhD and she finished her master's and PhD while she was having me and my other two siblings and raising us. And that too with a very, very limited resource. My dad was super supportive, but he had a very demanding job. So her life and her guidance was not just a huge inspiration for me, but I was really fortunate that I had her as my mentor during that tough time, you know, in the early days of me establishing my new career. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I can ask another question. Another question we have is, what challenges did you face going to your STEM career and how did you overcome them? And panelists, feel free to answer, even if someone else has answered, if you have something you want to say, feel free to step in.
Sure. The question was, what challenges have we faced in our STEM career? I think one of the challenges that I know that I faced is it can be in a lot of science and STEM routes, you are doing a lot of communications and science communications. Early on in my career, one feedback, we'll call it feedback, that I got from an advisor was that he sort of mocked the way that I was speaking, and made fun of the cadence of my voice and some of the word choices that I had. And it is very important in science to speak precisely when you're talking about things. So that is feedback well taken, but to divorce that from his bias in the way that I was communicating was a bit of a challenge for me in the beginning, is listening to a critique that has some parts that were valid, and then not taking it to that personal level of, oh, she's saying like she's talking with her hands. She's got a very feminized voice and feminized way of speaking. So that is not in the same way a valid critique of my science and of the communication that I'm trying to provide. So I would say a struggle for me was really just trying to hear some of the true parts of a critique, and separate that from some of those internalized biases that mentors and people in positions of power had, and then just move on from those and not take them personally.
Frankie, thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel so compelled to add on to that, because it was pretty similar. For me, my challenge started a little early on, as I did my high school and undergrad in India. I opted for STEM track. So we had to pick up the track while we were in the high school. And in my class, I ended up with just 2 girls, including me, and 64 guys. And I was more of an extrovert, and the other girl in my class was more introvert. So I was extrovert, who wanted to be in the science fair, right, and in all those competitions and stuff. And these folks were not very used to. And my biggest challenge was that I was not taken very seriously. When I would deliver results, even during my undergrad or my first work experience, right out of my computer science job, they would get surprised, right, when I used to deliver great results, or work on some critical projects, because I did accomplish and was very fortunate to get that opportunity to work on some of the really critical projects for something like how we have FEI here. We used to have CBI in India, and I got an opportunity to work on one of their big IT projects. But they used to have a hard time recognizing me for my work. They would think that it's just by chance that I delivered what I delivered. So it was a pretty long journey, and I continued challenging them, and also honestly stayed focused on delivering more impactful and meaningful results. So now I have just realized, just continue doing what is right, and there is no need to prove anything to anyone, because the quality that we deliver is honestly ends up becoming our brand, especially in science.
Thanks, guys. Those are really great answers to that. I also have something to share on that point. Kind of from the beginning, I guess in engineering and in engineering fields, being a lot of situations where you're the only woman in the room, and that can be really hard. One of the things I kind of have been reflecting back on since being asked to do this panel and thinking about the struggles that I've had socially. A lot of times you find yourself in, I found myself in situations where there's kind of either like inappropriate talk or things that aren't very comfortable for me as the woman in the situation, and I've ended up having felt the pressure to be like, oh, you know, she's the cool girl. She doesn't care. And now as I'm going through my career, I'm learning like, no, you know, we got to put a stop to that type of talk and like to be more assertive in that type of situation. And so that's kind of one thing that's that's been hard for me going through the STEM career. And I would say like 99% of the people I work with are fantastic. It's, you know, those one-off situations, but you always feel that if you're the woman in the room, you've kind of got the spotlight on you. And if you're disagreeable, then you're just kind of the troublemaker. Yeah, and then the other thing, and this is fresh on my mind because I just had twin baby girls. So I've just had to take off for maternity leave, and so to be the only woman on a team, and then also to be the only woman taking off for maternity leave is there's kind of a lot of pressure there. There's kind of like a stigma there. It's like so it's been kind of hard to wrap my head around, but you know, I took the leave and I came back and I just continued doing my job. Yeah, and now and I can kind of understand. I know one of the questions was about, you know, why so many women drop out of STEM fields as they progress in their careers, and I know there can be many reasons, but I do think that having kids could be one of them, because I'm finding it's quite hard, and there's a lot of demands, and then socially I feel like a lot of responsibilities fall on women just because of our social structure. And then if you work in groups of all men, you don't necessarily understand all of the other undertakings that you have, and yeah, and it can be a lot. So yeah, I'm still learning. I don't think I've perfected it yet, but I'm learning. So
Hey, Wendy, congratulations on your twins. And what you
Thank
just
you.
addressed is motherhood bias. I really encourage you to challenge those, you know, and voice it, because today you are the only woman in the team. But if you voice it, you're gonna pave that path for the others who will join the team.
That's
Thank
great
y'all for
advice.
sharing.
Thanks.
That's awesome. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, Wendy, but we have a question from the chat, and it's kind of a multi-pack question. It says, I think we're doing an okay job of getting women and other minorities interested in going to STEM careers, but it seems that many drop out of STEM fields once they get into the industry and run into biases that exist there. What do you think can be done to get people in leadership positions to recognize this bias and do something about eliminating it?
So, okay, I'm gonna take a stab, and please others feel free to join. So, you know, many do drop out. That is true. And as we all know, right, change is something. It's a slow process. Like moving a Titanic is not easy. A big ship. So that's how our industry is, right? It's very data driven. We start collecting data. So if we look at the last 10 years, right, all the maternal benefits, and also, I mean, the amazing thing is now that we also have bonding leaves, right, and parental leave, that you know, male employees, anyone who's becoming a parent can use it. You know, it's valid for adoption, you know, same-sex marriages and whatnot. So we are making progress, right? We are not yet there, but we are making progress. I think the most important thing is that we don't speak. You know, the fear that if I'm going to speak, as Wendy was saying, it's very true that I'll be the noisy one. We are not actually contributing to the data source, right? We are not giving them that data. So it's very important to stand up against bias. Go and share that with your HR partner, your manager, whoever you feel comfortable with. And once they collect enough data, that is how the policies are adjusted and made, right? Because the companies can't operate, right? Corporations cannot operate without their key talent or without people. So they do have to make adjustment, and it's also a reflection of changes that goes into our society. So most important thing is, yes, bias do exist, and you'll be surprised. Sometimes people don't know that they have those biases because it's unconscious. I have had situations where, I mean, someone I really respect and worked with for a very long time, and I started realizing the person is, why is he acting this way, right? And I did one-on-one with him and talked to him, and he had no idea how he would act in that moment and become very authoritative, and take my work and start presenting it, and not treat me as equal. And he's a fantastic human being, but I think he was not able to see or recognize his own bias. So sometimes talking about it really helps the other person. They may not have any bad intention, but by talking about it and addressing it and challenging the status quo, we are also helping them overcome it, right? And also make sure that the right policies are set in place. It's only through policies and some of the corporate policies we are going to eliminate it, right? It's very important. And also all the inclusion practices and trainings on overcoming biases are really key and instrumental. And it is a must to do thing. It's not an optional thing or nice to have, but it is a must to do. That's how my approach is, because I try to work in this area outside of my day job. But if anyone else have anything to contribute, Frankie and Wendy?
Yeah, sure. So I think, one thing that I think is very important to kind of go into what you're saying, when you say about speaking up about trying to break some of these biases is try to speak up for other people as well, and not just for yourself, and maybe not even just people who look like you. Is if you see somebody's ideas are always getting stepped over, like you suggested, or presented as somebody else, either call that out directly or say, oh, I really liked her idea. Or yeah, like Wendy, that was a really smart thought, or Gorima, that was a great insight you had there. And really just, name some of those accomplishments and be an advocate for other people who are in your group, so that it's not always, it falls disproportionately on people who are, in minority groups or marginalized groups. Is kind of being a good colleague and a good peer or coworker, and paying attention to some of those nuances that are happening. I think that's helpful. And I agree what you said is, on bonding leave and some of these other policies, is utilizing those policies if you are not you don't identify as a woman still. Like, actually taking a bonding leave is good for your female colleagues who are taking maternity and bonding leave as well. So utilizing these practices that your companies have is a great way, I think, to start stop putting some of that disproportionately on women's shoulders.
All right, so our next question is from an audience member. It says, I have a 7-year-old daughter who isn't terribly interested in STEM. How can I encourage her to try different things related to STEM activities? Do you have any suggestions of specific activities or ways to help her become more engaged?
Oh, STEM is such a diverse, there's so many different types of areas you can go in for STEM. So like I would recommend personally is seeing what she is drawn to and what she does like. And then learning like some of the intro level activities that you might be able to do for that. Like for me, I think that like I like to cook, and I think cooking can be really fun. And then learning some of like that chemistry is sort of cooking, or even some things about food that oh, that's because this chemical that's in it. So that's one thing I would say, is just like listening to what some of her interests are and really showing her that they are often STEM related or based in STEM in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, they're also like, we at Intel, we try to partner with local schools where, we go and do some science demo. Also like career day, STEM day kind of thing. So I really encourage, if that's not happening in her school, maybe you can talk to her teacher You can reach out to Monica. We can try to find if your school is within the network, or we can try to help find some resources. Also, like sometimes OMSI has these like really nice science exhibits catered for kids. I think that's a fantastic way. I do remember when my daughter was young, right? I used turmeric in my food, as Wendy was saying, right? And I would tell her the properties of it and how it changes color, and why you're not gonna use cast iron, right? When I'm mixing up my avocado or yogurt and things like those, just, the properties and things that will oxide. So you can do that, through stuff that she plays with and all that. But OMSI is a great resource, as well as like trying to talk to her teacher to see how you can, get that thing incorporated in her school, where she will have more resources.
Yeah, thank you all for answering. And to add on to that, Oregon MESA is a great resource for students. We partner with many STEM education organizations, so reach out to us, and our contact information will be at the end of this presentation tonight. So our next question is, can you share more about your experiences in STEM competitions as a young student? How did those experiences prepare you for your career, and how can we reduce bias against girls in STEM competitions?
Sorry, can you read that question one more time?
Yeah. Can you share more about your experiences in STEM competitions as a young student, and how did those experiences prepare you for your career? And the third part is, how can we reduce bias against girls in STEM competitions?
Yeah, Wendy and Frankie, please feel free. My experience is slightly different, as I mentioned. I did my, till my undergrad, I was in India. It was fierce. It was very competitive. And, I mean, you have to compete every walk of life. I think I was also very assertive right from my childhood, and I would not take no for an answer. I always used to fight and challenge. So when I was told, oh, you can't go to this Olympiad, or this science thing and all, right, it has always been all boys team and all, I would challenge it and I would not give up. I think the competition was too harsh and too extreme, but I think it helped me. It gave me a fighter instinct. It provided me that positive approach that I'm going to prove them wrong. And in that process, I leveled up my game, right? I would focus on things, my physics was never my strong area, but, I would invest time. I was really good with math, but physics is something that I was like, oh, I only have to do it because it's, I have to maintain my grade. But because of those little competitions and stuff, I will start making sure that I polish my brighter side so much, that I'm ready for the competition. And I think it really helped me in my career later, where I often, get recognized for quality and being detailed oriented and more data driven. So I think these are some of the things, right? Some of these negative experiences also stems into positive growth opportunity. It's just a matter of how we internalize it, but at the same time it can also be very crushing. So I have a high school daughter who's ready to go to school. She's extremely bubbly, very lively, plays on the varsity team, basketball, and somehow there was a notion attached um, that she's not good in studies, right? It's based on her personality and stuff. And she's pretty good, right? She's taking all these AP courses and whatnot. So even her counselor was surprised that, oh, you're picking up all, like, you're gonna go for STEM, and not just STEM, she is also receiving opportunities and scholarships. But I was trying to understand, why is it? That's just because, she plays, she's very athletic, the way she dresses up or whatever it is. But those are some things, and she's proving them wrong, right? So it's through our actions that we can prove them wrong. But some students can take it negatively, and they can actually get into a self-fulfilling a prophecy or imposter syndrome. So that is something that we really, as instructors, as parents, as caregivers, we have to really watch for.
And I personally never, growing up, I didn't compete in any STEM competitions, but a few times in my adult life, I have volunteered to help proctor and run some of the competitions. And I think that can also be a good way to help to remove or reduce the bias in these competitions is paying it forward to your community. You know, like I want it to be a happier and better place for any girls, anybody, you know, coming up through STEM. And one thing that I can do for that is to spend my time and volunteer and give back by, like, you know, being an active member in these organizations.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you. Our next question is, how would you suggest connecting with women engineers at Intel and maintaining those meaningful relationships?
Oh, I think I answered that question. Maybe I sent it privately. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So I basically said that, you know, there are different ways. When we were open and we were on site, right, we used to have some speed mentoring event where we would invite high school students or PSU students. Lately, what I've been seeing from last 2 years, that LinkedIn has become a great resource to connect. And sometimes there are requests, you know, for you know, from mentees. And even if, say, I don't have bandwidth or time, I think it's a great way for someone to connect so that I can help them connect to a potential mentor. So I really encourage, right, that you go and get connected. Most of us here are very passionate in building our community and developing each other. I'm sure they're going to respond. And if they don't have the bandwidth, they will try their best to connect you to whoever has. So do not hesitate, reach out.
May I chime in here? I
Sure.
know I'm not officially panelist, but
Oh, come on.
yeah, this resonates with me because, like Frankie, I'm new to Intel. I only started in November, and it's a really great opportunity to join Orwin. So small plug for Orwin here to connect with other women engineers. This is kind of what I was really involved in graduate school as well, finding, you know, minded people in a community. So finding an ERG that really resonates with you, and Orwin is a great one to join, will help you expand your community and become an ally and become, you know, one of us basically. So I encourage participation in Orwin events, and reaching out to us is if you wanted to volunteer in anything like this.
Thank you. Our next question is, we often hear that having relatable mentors is really important to belonging in your career, especially when you're the only woman in your field. But sometimes it's hard to find a mentor you can identify with. Can you share a story about a mentor who you didn't really identify with, and how do they support you in your career, or what made them feel relatable to you? And it's open
Wendy,
to anyone.
yeah, Wendy or Frankie, if you want, please take it, and I'll add later.
Sure. Yeah, I guess being at Intel in general, I haven't had any female managers yet. And I do respect highly a lot of my managers that I have had. And so in terms of mentorship and like my trainers and managers at Intel, like they've been really great, and I've had a lot of respect for them. And although I don't identify with them personally, it's we identify more on the technical side of things. So yeah, so I guess it just finding the respect in terms of like the technical methods, but that can be pretty difficult. I guess one piece of advice in terms of finding a mentor, you don't always have to limit yourself to the mentor that's assigned to you. You can go out and find other people that aren't necessarily your designated mentor to talk to. So yeah, I guess kind of spread your wings a little bit and look for mentors outside of your small circle. but yeah, in grad school, I also had a male advisor, and yeah, and it was kind of hard to identify with him as well, but we could kind of find some, I guess, common interests. Yeah, and kind of just keeping it towards more on the technical side of things.
Yeah, I would also say that I struggled with finding a mentor when I was younger. And I think that was really just how I was deciding to define what a mentor was. And when I kind of reflected back, I realized I didn't have a mentor. I had maybe 10 different mentors for all different aspects of my life, whether that be in my career, in STEM specifically, in academics, in personal life. And so I think that piggybacks off really well with what Wendy was saying, was not necessarily just the person who is your official on paper, they're your advisor. They might not like inspire you in a way in specific areas that you feel like you need to be inspired. They might not communicate the ways that you want to be communicating. So really is seeing those people and really identifying that and sort of thinking different, thinking outside of the box a little bit can also be extremely helpful. When I was in undergrad in Minnesota, I worked, oh, my accent came out really bad when I said Minnesota there. I worked at doing front desk at a hair salon, and some of the women who were stylists at the salon were like fantastic mentors for me. Extremely intelligent and hardworking women, career-focused women who some of the things that they spoke about stays with me to this day, like 10 years later, because they were like just incredible mentors and incredible women. So not necessarily all STEM all the time, but using some like a powerful, like great women in other aspects is also, I think, very beneficial.
Yeah, I echo with that. You know, it's very important, first of all, for us to know what do we want from our mentor. Sometimes we don't go with a clear head either, right? So understanding whether you're wanting to have a technical mentor who's going to help you, prepare you for a PE path, a fellow path, things like those, or you want to have a mentor who's going to help you with like finding work-life balance, right? Or navigating through the culture of the company, because a lot of people need a mentor to help them navigate, corporate culture. So first of all, understanding and be clear with your ask, and and then you approach accordingly. I've had both female and male mentors, and amazing, and folks who were different, right, from me, and not relatable in a lot of aspects, but they are like my lifelong mentors. And I'll be honest that I did try reaching out to someone, who's from a similar background or like cultural identity, but I was not able to connect with that mentor at a personal level. Because we all want different things from our lives, right? We have different ambitions and aspirations and different values. Just coming from the same cultural background doesn't mean that all of that matches, right? So just be aware of that. It's just finding the right person who's the right fit for you and who's going to support you in your journey.
Thank you all for sharing. That's really great advice. The next question that I wanted to ask was, how did you all choose your career path? Actually, let me pivot that question. How do you show up and lead in an environment that wasn't constructed for women? So in your workplaces, and whether professional work or like academia, how do you show up as a person and lead an environment that isn't always, catered to you or, set out for you?
Yeah, sure. So that's a hard question because, and I think it's a constantly evolving answer depending on the situation. But one thing that I think is helpful is that you can be a better leader than the system that was in place kind of was set up to be. by being a good listener and by being a good cooperator. You know, working well with other people is one of, I think, the best parts about being a good leader, and about willing to do, you know, any of the hard tasks. You know, so being very diligent in the work, but then also just listening and working well with people, I think, because a lot of leaders don't necessarily work well with others. They're just maybe the most, the loudest person in the room, but not necessarily the best sort of person who's getting everybody together and moving everybody forward. So I guess I would say being a good leader, despite the fact that that's not always what is expected from a leader.
That's really great. You know, Wendy, I'll add on to it and I'll share some examples from Intel that I feel super proud of. Sometimes it's also on us to help create the environment that doesn't exist, right? If it didn't exist, it doesn't mean that we can't get it created. Otherwise, 10 years later, we will be saying the same thing, right? Or at least work on getting it addressed, right? If we have a concern or something, you know, we can always go and talk and get it addressed. I have been in some situations where, you know, I was not feeling very well, and you know, there was not a single female in the room, and you know, I was in a very big supplier meeting, right? And you know, and unfortunately, it was like a semi-formal event, and I was wearing a jumpsuit, right? And it's cumbersome, you know, when you have to go use the restroom, and I was hosting a big quality summit, right? So I did reach out to my ally. I was like, I can't do this in 5 minutes because I had to go from one room to another, and it was quite a walk and everything. So he's like, yeah, you know, we should have definitely had at least 15 minutes break. So next year when they did the event, they were more mindful in terms of how it was being laid out. So at Intel, right, we have these parking lots. The very first premium spots are like for expectant mothers. This didn't exist 10 years back, right? So that's quite a progress because someone said, hey, you know, when I get pregnant, you know, it's really hard for me to park my car there and walk all the way here. So even though things didn't exist, it doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It's us challenging those status quo and helping them understand what our requirements are, what a woman needs in the workplace, right? And how it needs to be adjusted. At Intel cafeteria, I slipped. I was in my shoes, formal shoes, and there was this little ice, and I slipped. And it compelled them, and this was, by the way, Wendy and Monica and Frankie, this was brand new cafeteria in RA3, and it forced them to change the floor because there was nothing wrong with my shoes. It's just how they will bring the trolley during the lunchtime, transfer the food, certain ice chips will fall and it will melt and become water, and the kind of wood they had or laminate, whatever, it was not very good, right? So they had to put those mats at least near those bars. And they realized that, you know, people have different kind of shoes, right, and whatnot. So I think it's a lot on us as well. How can we address these things in a positive manner, in a constructive manner, and get the environment created?
That's really good insights. I have a little bit to add in terms of, I guess, around like the women's issues at work and being pregnant at work and kind of showing up in that environment in fab, in the bunny suit, and then being pregnant. And I guess the way I've kind of learned to deal with it is at first I was kind of like embarrassed about these things. I was like, oh, I have to leave to go pump. I'm breastfeeding my kid. I need to pump the milk every couple hours. And I wouldn't say things, but now I've kind of transitioned. I've been like educating, I guess, because a lot of the men don't know. So I'll tell them, hey, you know, I'm feeding my kids. I need to go remove the milk and I'll be back in 30 minutes. and kind of tell them exactly like what's going on, or you know, yeah, just educating the men around you so that they can better know what your needs are. Because a lot of them have good intentions. They just haven't, either their wife hasn't had a child or they are they just haven't experienced that before. Yeah. But I guess I have a funny story. The first time I met one of my managers, I was pregnant in the first trimester with my first daughter, and I was very nauseous the whole time. But the first trimester was very hard. As in the fab, in the bunny suit, standing there at pass down. My manager comes up to me and he's introduces himself, and I say, I gotta go throw up. And I had to go throw up in the chem room in my bunny suit, just into garbage. I came back and he was just totally horrified. So then I had to explain to that whole group, what was going on. And, it's, I think education goes a long way, and then people can have more compassion for you, and they can understand what you're going through, and hopefully, the people they interact with in the future, they can also take that learning and apply there. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to a couple more questions. We still have some time for questions, so if you all want to add more to the chat, feel free. But I'm just going off of some of the ones that we kind of thought of originally. What are you seeing right now that is hopeful for the next generation of women / people in STEM?
I think events like this are great. And then because when I was a little kid, I really didn't know what it was to be a scientist. So even just like showing people what opportunities are out there to be a professional engineer, a professional scientist, and what that means and what it looks like. And so that I think there's more of these events happening than there were when I was younger, and even more than when my mom was maybe younger. And another thing that I'm excited about is that there are a lot more women that are younger who are in science and in STEM now than there ever have been, than there were. There are a lot of female professors that I'm seeing more and more of, a lot more female engineers. So hopefully we can have, 2 people on a team, to maybe even 50-50 one day. So I think that's those are some things that I've been seeing lately.
Yeah, I really agree, right? Today, like this very moment, right? We are talking about it, addressing some of these issues and biases, and it's happening at a global platform. And I also think we are in an amazing time, right? With the power of technology, right? That is, at Intel we say that, through technology, we are gonna change the life of every individual on the earth. And I sometimes really feel that's true, right? I mean, so much access we have through all the global virtual platforms, right? I mean, events like this can happen at a global scale. We can share our experiences, our stories, and that also actually helps us because, then you hold your leaders accountable. Then you hold your school system, your universities, whatnot, right? And challenge the status quo, continue speaking because the voices are getting heard. Lean In published some report, right? So the power of data, I think that was not there, what it is today. And that really helps us bring those changes. I mean, we are looking at the stats and the number, how many women are entering into STEM, or for that matter, even how many women like ourselves, right, who started a career in STEM. How has our progression, career development and progression been in comparison to my male counterpart, my male peer, who joined at the same time with the same credentials, right? 10 years down the road, if person A becomes a, I'm just throwing this example, becomes a PE, or a director or a VP, and if my career has not moved along, I mean, these are some of the data that is being looked upon in the industry, and I think it's very compelling, right? No one can hide it, and a lot of companies are now required to publish some of this data. What are you doing to help progress your female talent? It's not just important for the woman to go in STEM. It is very important, the very fundamental step, but what do we do afterwards, right? how do we help them reach to their full potential? I think from that perspective, we have far more visibility in this time than it was ever before. So I completely agree with Wendy, with Frankie, a lot of things that our parents' generation, we're not able to reap the benefit of, like the virtual platforms, the power of data. We have access to it. It's now on us. How do we utilize it?
That's a really great point, and holding the companies like accountable for trying to use that data and do better. Yeah, I have one more idea on that topic. I guess trying to help other women out as you go along in your career too, whether it's mentoring younger people who are going into the STEM field, or even just encouraging another female coworker to like go for the big promotion or like apply for that job. Like it's a little bit out of reach, but still, put your resume in and see what happens. Like I think a lot of times women will hold back when men of the same technical level will, give it a shot. And so encouraging the women around us to kind of go for it, I guess. And yeah, and just kind of, if we all just like lift each other up at any level, I mean, down, from, middle school, high school, like undergrad, you can always be lifting up your colleagues. And I think that's really important. So, yeah.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask one last question. This is actually one of my favorite questions, and it is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So for this one, it's a tough one for me because there are lots, but with time I've realized if there's one thing that I can change was please speak up. Do not suffer in silence, because it's not doing any good to anyone, right? It didn't do any good to me. I was not able to contribute to the data set by speaking up and addressing some of those biases and challenges. So that's just, what I'll say. Please do not suffer in silence. Speak up, and continue speaking up till you actually, find resolution or, a commitment for that issue to get fixed. Continue doing it, because if there are 10 people not hearing your voice, trust me, there is one person. If that person hears your voice, things do change.
I would say for me is don't be afraid to take up space. So whether that be getting my accommodations met in any way, making sure that what I want, what I think, my thoughts towards a project are being heard, is all being met, and that I'm taking up the space. I deserve to be there, and not to be afraid, not to feel ashamed or insecure about it, but just I deserve to be there, and don't be afraid of that.
Kudos to that.
So this is kind of interesting. I feel like we all have very similar advice to our younger selves. Mine was along the same lines, just to be more assertive and not to have any fear about what people will think of that assertiveness, and not being worried about being labeled as bossy or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a hard hitter for a lot of people, a lot of women going into STEM, is that assertiveness. And yeah, it's always a work in progress, but yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all for such a lovely and rich conversation. Now we're going to transition over to Bianca for some announcements.
Thank you, Taye. Okay, so I'm going to do some quick announcements for us. Can everyone see my screen again? All right, so upcoming, we are going to have our high school family nights. Those are going to be April 18th and 20th at 6 p.m. So usually our family nights are hosted in person. However, we're still operating virtually. So students will be joined by OMSI and the College Place. They'll host a few activities for you and your families. they'll be hosted in both English and Spanish on both nights. There will be two different channels that you can tune into for your audio. So if your family needs translation in Spanish, there's the option there. We're going to be giving out Grubhub gift cards for those in attendance. And then there is also a raffle. So make sure that you register ASAP at tinyurl.com/MESA HSFN22. Okay, May 11th at 5:30 p.m. we're going to have our Future Innovators Celebration. This is usually a part of our culminating event of the year, MESA Day. MESA Day is going to be on May 20th, and I'll talk about that next. But we are going to be honoring our students, teachers, and community members for the Future Innovators Celebration. It's a chance for you to support MESA's mission of ensuring an equitable STEM future. Register, please, at tinyurl.com/futureinnovators22. We're still accepting sponsorships. Support the MESA mission and sponsor our MESA Day. Your support as a sponsor will help MESA's expansion to reach more students, teachers, and families all across Oregon. Text MESA Innovators to 41444 to make a donation, and visit that same link above, or contact OR MESA at pdx.edu. Okay, and this is our MESA Day announcement. So MESA Day will be held Friday, May 20th on campus at PSU. This is the first time we're going to have an in-person event in 2 years. Actually over 2 years. MESA Day competition is our signature event and reaches hundreds of students annually. We're going to be having students join us from as far as Klamath Falls for this event. And students, your advisors will give you some more information coming up, but you can visit everyday.oregonmesa.org to kind of see like past MESA Day information and a little bit more about the competition. If you're interested in volunteering, individuals, fill out our general volunteer form, and we will get back to you about how to sign up for MESA Day. And partners, reach out to me directly at bchacamp@pdx.edu. I did want to let you all know about our COVID protocols for the event. Since Oregon MESA is part of Portland State University, we have to follow the university policies as far as COVID-19 safety. So for this event, all attendees, that includes staff, students, volunteers, teachers, etc., will have to present a vaccination card upon entry, or a negative COVID test taken within 48 hours, and it has to have be taken by a medical professional in a facility that's trained and verified to do that. So that is our policy for the event, and we're doing that to maintain everyone's safety. We hope that you can join if you feel comfortable, and if not, please join the Future Innovator Celebration, since that will be happening virtually. Okay, thank you all for coming. Thank you to Garima, Wendy, Frankie as our panelists. Thank you to Monica and OR Win for organizing this talk with us. And thank you to Taye, as always, for co-hosting these MESA Talks with me. If you have any questions for us, you can email ormesa@pdx.edu and follow us on social media. That's how you see all our news about upcoming events, upcoming MESA Talks, and how to volunteer with us. All of our social media is there, and this recording, like I said, is going to show up on our YouTube channel probably in the next week or so. All right, have a good night, and we'll stick around for 5 minutes in case anyone has any other questions, but thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca, as well, for hosting.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This was a great
Thank you
session.
for having us.
It was awesome. Thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
So much. This was, great discussion.
Okay.
So just wanted to make sure that we were able to answer all the questions. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there's nothing sitting in the Q&A.
Yeah, it looks like everything was answered. But if anyone is still here and does have any questions that we didn't answer, you can go ahead and drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. Our team is available until 6:30. If our panelists would like to go, they can. But if you're available to stick around for any extra questions, we're here. I am actually going to stop sharing my screen and stop our recording for now.